Okay, so hi everybody. This is Shannon Morse from The Green Door Life, and I'm sitting here with our lovely Emilio and Jax. Little Jax. So, yeah. So we really just love to have these kind of testimonials and interviews. And I was just sharing with you, Emilio, I really am curious to hear, first of all, like, let's start here. Like, what prompted you, or how did you find me in the very beginning? Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. So when I was living in Palo Alto, 2013, 2014, I was experimenting with CrossFit, and I was working out at a place in Los Altos called FIT, F-I-T, Functional Individual Trainers, I think it was called. And one of the coaches there said that they knew you. And I forgot the name when I first met you of that studio in San Francisco that I met you at. Maybe it was that gym.
Yeah.
But they told me Shannon Morse, and they gave me you as a referral. And I forgot who it was, to be honest with you. And yeah, I reached out, and I remember coming to visit you and going on the second floor of that yoga studio, and having our first little get together.
Yes, and that was about, I think, maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Almost 6 years. It was 2014.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Wow. Okay. And so if you can just kind of like give us a recap about what the experience was when we were working together, and then what you ended up doing in the middle, and then coming back to us.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. That's a great starting point. So when I had met you, you were like my first formal, let's say, nutritional coach. I don't know if that's even the right terminology. And at that time, or before that time, I was experimenting with, paleo, Whole30. I mean, I was putting butter in my morning coffee. I mean, it's just ridiculous things. I remember eating 2 prime rib steaks for dinner because all I could eat was meat. I literally had 2 pounds of meat for dinner. I mean, that's what I was doing. And I was also, the same gym was introduced me to like a hormonal doctor. So I was checking my hormone levels, and, there was a belief that if you're in a certain range, you have to work out a certain way. I was doing all of that. But you were really the first one that hit me with this concept of you can eat whatever you want as long as it's within a certain macro range for your body. And you were the first one to put me on an in-body machine and, teach me about that. I think you ever even recommended me to get a DEXA scan, which there was a place close by my house, and I did get one. So I know the difference between that and the in-body. But needless to say, I wound up having troubles with my business, and I moved back to New York, and we kind of lost touch. So I wasn't using the knowledge you were giving me or trying to give me the way I should have. I wasn't really paying as much attention to, because I had other distractions going on in my life. So in that absence of talking with you, you built a much better, you bolted on some additional necessities to your business, and you started doing circus acts with the Cirque du Soleil and aerial work. But we did stay in touch. But what I was doing in the interim was listening to like every fool and every coach in New York and on the internet and on Instagram. And I spent a period of just, chasing people or looking at people that I really didn't understand what got them to where they were. So these are guys that were in shape, and I wanted to mold my body to look like theirs because I thought that was the aesthetic I wanted. I didn't realize that these guys were either retired professional athletes or had been eating right and working out 15, 20 years. And I needed to have a little bit more patience. So I think I just did not have patience. And I think this is an actual term, program hopping. I was just trying fad to diet, and nothing was working, and I was getting frustrated. And then I connected with you, and you connected me with Lisa, and you explained Green Door Life and what it was. And I knew that I had to, make a commitment to buy in total, or I would be continuing to do this, signing up with programs and not getting anything out of it. And in effect, continuing to waste time and money. So I've been 100% listening to you and Lisa. I don't think I've been deviating at all. I've taken what I call my little OCD compulsions to stay the course and track everything. I'm continuing to do that. Yeah, and we're seeing results. We're seeing a lot of really, really good results, and what I've been missing.
So
Maybe that's a good stopping point to say
yes, well,
that.
I love it
I don't want to keep
because
rambling on.
no, this is all really good. So I love it especially because the aspect of comparing ourselves to the little snippets that we see in Instagram or social media right now, it is such a false ideal of what is actually happening. Like, not only does it give us this carrot to shoot for that has nothing to do with our own bodies, like, but it also is very systematically selected so that it's like, ooh, look at that butt, like, ooh, look at that chest, like, ooh, look at this. And it doesn't share any of like the background of what those people either had to go through, their health history, their experience. I mean, some people will give a lot of that experience, but because not very many of us scroll down to like the start of these social media influencers beginning, because mostly they actually start deleting them, which is really strange. So I followed some people for a period of time and I know what they started out as, but they've deleted that beginning stage, which is interesting because then all you see is their perfection over a course of time. And then you're like, well, why am I not like that all the time? Like, why did I get the short end of the stick? Like, what am I doing, like, quote unquote, wrong? And so I love that because you are not the only one that has experienced that. You know, it's a huge business. It's a huge business right now. So I think that what you're saying is amazing. And I think so many people can relate to that. And then, so now kind of, because we've gone into like, I think this is like our third or fourth phase, right, of working together.
What do you mean, like start and stops? But yeah, this is definitely the longest. This is the longest and the one that I've put the most time in. And yeah, regardless of the old habits that keep creeping up, like the periods of self-doubt, I'm really suppressing them, using a lot of the tools you gave me, like, erasing my Instagram and journaling and, things like that have really helped me stay the course. But yeah, you see what your body starts to go through and you get, like when you put muscle on, it's hard not to confuse it with I'm getting fatter or I'm getting bulkier. And that's kind of the period I'm in right now, I think.
And it's it's a fascinating thing because I can totally relate to that. When I start to put on muscle and my clothes start to fit a little bit tighter because there's more muscle mass, I absolutely have to go through that like internal conversation of, wait a second, this is tighter. That's not supposed to be that's not supposed to be happening right now. And I literally have to walk myself through it like internally. And I think one of the biggest things that I want to continue to share with you and everybody else is like, everyone has that internal dialogue, right? Like everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's one thing to go like, oh, I shouldn't feel that way. And it's another to go like, no, I do. I know that I do that sometimes. And I can,
It's so crazy how, okay, so we've been on, in this particular phase, we've been 12 weeks. So the first 4 weeks, the first 6 weeks were like, wow, I'm doing everything right. I'm getting quote unquote skinny and everything was fitting great. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. But 6 through 12 has been, wow, this is a new high in bench press. And now I'm like deadlifting my previous PR for 10 and, wow, I'm getting stronger. And now like my jeans, I'm like, wait, why are my jeans tighter? What's going on? Am I getting fatter? And I was sending Lisa pictures from vacation, like, oh my God, I look fatter and look at this, what's going on? But it's amazing how the body goes through that. So I'm sure there's a lot of scientific reason that I don't understand, but it's definitely happening. And I'm looking at it as positive things that are happening.
Absolutely. And I think this also gives us an opportunity to kind of, as we're going through like an extended period of time, we can actually look at, oh, well, what do I actually want? You know what I mean? Because we might say that we want more muscle. And then when we get there, we're like, oh wait, did I really want more muscle? Because actually I liked it when I had like a little bit less. And I've continued to have to go through that process. Body types like yours, body types like mine, we can put on muscle very easily with the right training. And so which can be a positive and a negative, right? Because if we want to feel kind of like lean and like almost like Calvin Klein, like, where the, like that sort of feeling, then we may not need as much muscle as we may have like previously thought. And when you look at
Marky Mark, I want to look like Marky Mark.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I get you. I get you. So, but Marky Mark is a tiny human.
Yeah, he looks great, but yeah, he's I don't think he's 6 foot, right? I don't think he's bigger than 6 feet.
Nope, not at all. He's a small dude. And if you were to see him in person, just like when I think people see me in person, they're like, you're really small. And I'm just like, I know.
Thanks.
But the impression of the muscle makes us look, like just the symmetry and everything makes you look a little bit more like, And we've seen like your back totally change, your shoulders, like your shoulder to hip ratio is totally transforming.
Wow.
And when you see yourself every day, sometimes it's hard to go like, oh yeah, I see what's going on.
Yeah.
But when we really look at just the silhouette of your body as it's changing over a period of time, like some big things are happening and you are definitely building muscle. So it's really, really cool to see. And there will always be these fluctuations of muscle inflammation that naturally happens from training. Things like travel and eating things that will have a little bit more sodium and all that. So which is the reason why we do it for extended periods of time, is because we're going to fall into understanding what all those things are, right? And then we can slowly bring you into being able to just identify like, oh, this is water retention from travel. This is water retention from sodium. This is inflammation in my muscles because I've been working out like a beast. And then just take that in and go, now I know that if I rest for a couple of days, that inflammation will go down and I'll see what's underneath it. And so this is kind of the process that we're in with you right now, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And it just keeps continuing. But I had another question for you here. So what was the impact for your mental like well-being when you took things like Instagram and like, when you took that off of your phone?
I mean, the impact for just getting rid of that one little app and was immediate. I mean, and it's not because I in truth, I don't think I didn't post really anything. I was just using it as it turned out, me using it as a news source, or I wasn't even looking at friends. I was following people in the gym. I was following people who worked out. I was following different types of diets, or, different types of cooking sites, right? How to put meals together and things like that. And yeah, and you're always going to get photos and pictures, and it just leads you down this rabbit hole of not being happy with what you have at the moment. So I think getting rid of that was probably one of the most impactful things that I did. Yeah. So it was immediate, almost like a relaxation. And it also made me recenter and refocus on that this has to be a long-term goal, and it's not going to be a short fix. And I have this mental image of what I want to look like. And I've told you and Lisa the aesthetic that I'm chasing and what I want it to look like. And you know what? That's not going to happen in 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, even 12 weeks. It might take 24 weeks. So it's enabled me to have the impact of keeping things consistent.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And then even further, like your goals are now more than just body composition, because it also has to do with like your new, are you going to have a son?
Going to have a son.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
A little baby boy, end of May 30th is the expected due date.
Oh my gosh. So it's also like when you wanted to start this phase, it was also with that in mind, right?
Yeah, I mean, I used it as a joke that I don't want to have a dad bod, keeping things consistent.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And then even further, like your goals are now more than just body composition, because it also has to do with like your new, are you going to have a son?
Going to have a son.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
A little baby boy, end of May 30th is the expected due date.
Oh my gosh. So it's also like when you wanted to start this phase, it was also with that in mind, right?
Yeah, I mean, I used it as a joke that I don't want to have a dad bod, but I think the underlying subconscious is, yeah, I mean, there is still a little bit of vanity to it. You want to look good, but, and I think as we all get older, we start to realize how much that sucks, in the sense that, you can feel that you're probably not as strong as you were when you were 25 at 45. So there's a little bit of that, but I think more importantly is realizing that my responsibilities are going to shift. This is such a privilege and a luxury to have the ability to prepare my meals during the day and to go to the gym whenever I want to, or to keep my schedule. And now I'm going to have this little human that I'm going to be responsible for, that's totally going to change my schedule around. So it's going to be a different set of challenges that I'm going to be facing. So I want to get in very good shape mentally, my mind in very good shape, and my body in very good shape before that happens, as much as I can.
Absolutely. And then whether you necessarily realize it now or not, are you kind of also thinking about like, you're going to have these tools about nutrition to then share with your son?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things on our registry was the baby registry, which is this weekend is Trisha's baby shower, but someone got us like little, when it gets to the point where you're making your baby's food, that I'm taking that over. So I'm
wow.
And there'll be a lot of like fresh vegetables and fruits and, better food than, cracking open a Gerber baby jar or something.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, all that I've learned, I'm hopefully going to use in raising baby Junior here.
Oh, which is amazing, because can you imagine what it would be like if you had like that understanding of nutrition and just being able to adjust things to have control over your body composition and like energy levels when you were younger?
Yeah, I mean, so perfect example. So, when I was, what I would be telling my son, if it was my dad telling me, it'd be like, can you stop eating? I mean, the second dish of pasta, you're fat. You're going to turn into being fat. Or so I think the dialogue definitely will be more gentler, for sure.
And maybe with a little bit more of like, because now you really understand, or you're growing and understanding more and more every day, like why, right? Like once, like I remember, growing up, I was blessed to have my mom who was like so into nutrition, and she taught nutrition for like health and immune system and that sort of thing. But it was never for body composition. So I knew what healthy was, but I didn't know how to control things and make them work for my body specifically. So I think that, it's one thing to like tell your kid or somebody like you should stop eating or else you're going to gain weight or you're going to get fat. It's another thing to go like, are you full? Like, should we listen to that? Like there's just a little bit more of like, how much can your body handle? Like, let's stop now. Like, or maybe you're still hungry. Like, who knows,
Yeah.
As a growing kid, you probably were very active and you made so as we're talking about parental communication and kind of messages that you learned when you're growing up, you had shared a story with us about your mom. So can you elaborate a little bit more about that?
Yeah. And I remember the story, sharing it with Lisa. We were talking, I think it was one of the awareness exercises that you guys that have in Green Door Life. And one of it was around instances from our youth, let's say, that could have shaped our eating habits. And, me especially, I think one of the things I've been working through with you and Lisa is this body image and body dysmorphia, or what in my mind, I think is quote unquote fat. And I'm really body shaming myself. Right. And I think a lot of that started just as a kid. Grew up in an Italian household, both parents Italian, both sets of grandparents, obviously Italian. And I remember one specific incident with my mom. I was playing I was very active in high school. I was playing lacrosse and soccer. And I remember my mom, without even telling me, she just came to and I went to an all-boy school. So she came to my lacrosse coach, again, without telling me. and was complaining to him because there was no phone, there was no email when I went to high school. So she literally went to the guy's office and said, she goes, "Well, what are you doing to my son?" She goes, "When he walks to the bathroom in his underwear," she goes, "I barely even recognize him." She goes, he's getting too skinny. He doesn't eat anymore." So I didn't know this conversation until after it happened. So my coach, we have a practice, the whole team is there. And when he wraps up his little pep talk, he goes, "Oh, guys, by the way," he goes, "Emilio, why don't you come up here 1 second?" And he says, "Yeah, guys, listen." He goes, had a nice visit from Mrs. Di San Luciano, and we have to go easy on Emilio. She doesn't even recognize him anymore when he walks around the house in his tidy whities, and he's losing too much weight, and he's working out too much, and she doesn't understand it. So he has to have more pasta. So let's, stop making fun of Emilio. Let's treat him nice. And, so it was that constant ribbing and that embarrassment that always had this in my head that I either had to work out or I couldn't eat too much, or what I was eating was bad or not enough. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that from a very early onset, I had that in my mind of associating food with getting fat.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you would get depressed, or you would get bummed out, and you would just, other things would distract you from working out. And when you leave high school, you don't play sports 5 days a week anymore. And you start soothing yourself with food. At least I did. Mm-hmm. So I think that tendency to overeat was always with me. And that's something that I know I won't share with my son because I'm aware of it. And those conversations would be a lot gentler of, guiding him in a kinder way of how to look at food and how to have the relationship with sports and being active and his body.
It's thank you so much for sharing that, because it's such I'm just picturing like that moment where you didn't know that your mom was saying that to your coach, and then your coach decided to just like broadcast it and almost have like a meeting about it.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
And were you there for that meeting?
Yeah. No, not the meeting with my mother. I was there for the meeting when he told the rest of my teammates. Yeah. Right.
And what was your experience during, do you remember what you felt like?
It was embarrassing. All the kids were abusing me. That I could say something derogatory, but I went to an all-boys school, and, my Italian mother was beating up my coach. So I was like the mama's boy. And here I am, I was this tough guy on the field, and now I've become mama's boy overnight, so that was, it wasn't fun. It wasn't something I liked,
Did you feel like you had to then prove yourself in a way to them?
To my team, I definitely worked out harder. I definitely saw and again, I'm trying to put it in the context of the 90s. There was definitely, when I went to high school, there was definitely no, I can imagine what lacrosse coaches have access to today versus what they had in the 90s. I mean, right. The weight rooms and the weight programs. So this was literally pile on as many plates as you can until you die. I mean, there was no, I can't even imagine what kind of plates they put on for me to squat or deadlift, even for 1 rep. And there was no warming up. There was no build up to 3 reps of a 5 rep set. No, there was none of that. So I think it was more, I have to be stronger, I have to be tougher, and I was probably doing harm to myself. Luckily, nothing ever happened, but I was on that path, yeah.
Yeah, totally. And oh man, it's so good. And we'll talk about this more later as well. But what I notice with certain moments in time like this, we'll have this moment of something happening, whatever it is. And sometimes that moment is the first experience where we basically have to make an agreement with ourselves to survive the moment. And what you just said right there is essentially perfect. I have to be stronger, I have to be tougher. And then look at where else that shows up as an adult.
Yeah.
And then just spreading it throughout the rest of your life. And we all have this experience, and it's so fascinating. And this is why, we built out the second part of our programs to be all about awareness practices, because that underlying belief about who we are or who we have to be really is in there. And is either sometimes like moving us towards achievement, because sometimes it really serves us. And in other ways, it's a limiting belief on ourselves of what we actually can or are capable of doing, or things that we don't even have to do. Like, we don't got to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I so love that. And thank you so much for sharing that.
No problem.
And so we're continuing on the program, which is awesome. So this is like so cool that we were able to do this mid-program on this run. And I just want to say that you are like absolutely one of our favorite clients. Like, it's been so fun. And we just love how we've like really kind of gone through these layers of understanding, right? Like, it's been nutrition, it's been mindset, it's been training, and it's just this whole like integrative life, not overhaul, but like inception almost, you know?
Yeah. So re-education for sure.
Re-education,
sure.
Yes.
And I definitely want to keep, I mean, I think one of the things I'm happy that I'm able to do is whenever you or Lisa tell me something, I can implement it right away. Like, I get it and I implement. So I want to make sure that I continue to do that, because so far it has translated to the results I want. So I'm going to keep doing that. And I think with the time, you guys know me, you know the way I text, you know the way I write. So sometimes I reread some of the texts that I used to send you, and I was like, oh my God, that might sound a little bit too harsh. Or not appreciative, but I think it's just even in the field I am, that's how I would text something. Totally. But I think you guys get my language now and the way that I speak. And yeah, there's a great communication between us. No, it's awesome. It's really awesome.
Oh yeah, it is. And we totally get your text communication. It's all good. And then my partner, Jeff, like talks with guys in the East Coast all the time. And sometimes I'll hear them talking and I'll be like, it's like a different language. Like,
yeah.
Y'all are a different breed, which I love.
Yeah, we are. Definitely. Definitely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I can't wait to see what is next, because it's definitely evolving, and this is a fun part.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for watching, you guys, and we'll see you later.